Hey folks, welcome back to the Metal Mill 52 workshop. My name is Bill and this is my locomotive, my Allen Mogul, and I've just finished doing some leak repair on it. After finishing the year-long project of the corn, wanted to get ready to do some actual track run, and one of the things I need to do, I had some leaks on the manifold that I just needed to address. Not a big deal, but you'll see about those in a second. If you'll hang with me for the next few segments, I'll show you what I did and how I fixed it, and I'm going to put the tools away and work on my Russ's project for the 12 by 36 lathe over there. Russ stopped by today and we talked about some new ideas, and I'm really excited. I appreciate he brought me a ratcheting tap wrench which he had found at Harbor Freight and I'd wanted and I couldn't find at my Harbor Freight store. So thank you again, Russ. I appreciate that. Looking forward to making these projects happen. Everybody, I'm trying to grow the channel. Please like, subscribe, pass the word. If you know somebody that's a home shop machinist that's interested in the kind of stuff that I work on, I'd sure appreciate you helping me grow my channel. So if you have any questions, please ask. If you don't have questions but you enjoy it, give me a thumbs up and pass the word, help me grow the channel. Thanks again, everybody. Appreciate you. Everybody, I'm going to do a short little live Steam related episode. Hey, my name is Bill. This is the Metal Mill 52 workshop, which I started for my live Steam Locomotive and to impart knowledge. And I'm about to engage on something. I built this, it was completed about 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now. It's only been run a few times between schedule and work things and commitments and COVID and all that stuff happening. I've only ran it at the track a couple times. And when I first put it together, I used some, let me tilt the thing up here. I used a variety of different things to seal the threads on the steam appliances. And at first I had a couple of leaks, and the second time I used it, there was a couple more. And when I run it on air, I just noticed it seemed like there was a lot of leaks on my manifold. So I did a test. I'll show a little clip of that next, I guess, that shows me using a little paintbrush and some soapy water, and you can see the bubbles there where the leaks are on the manifold. The manifold itself, let me switch around here. Just kind of wanted to show what the locomotive looked like. You probably can't see this very well, but you'll see a close-up in just a minute. But in here, it's the main distribution for the steam appliances for the locomotive. And the fittings in particular are right here and over here that have the little leaks. These ones over here I've cured over time and they're fine. Long story short, I just repaired one of the leaks using this kind of stuff, and it worked out really well. It's Permatex thread sealant, high temperature. It's a good up to 400 degrees, prevents leakage. It's mainly made for tapered thread fittings, like you'd find in a pipe, pipe fittings, which are most of the ones that are here are basically miniature or model engineering pipe threads. So I cured one of the leaks with an old tube I had of this, so I decided to go ahead and buy a fresh tube. It was about $7 at the auto parts store, which is kind of pricey for a tiny little tube like that. But for the cure that I'm gonna get, I think, to solve all these leaks, it'll be nice. So I'll do a couple of segments of I'll show you the leaks in a very short clip, and then I'll be taking over the week. I'm going to take some of these fittings apart and reseal them with this. There's one place I found over here I do need to re-silver solder, so I may show that as I work on that as well. So a little live Steam update this week. Okay, so now I've removed all of the things where there was leaks, This thing I took off and I just put it on temporarily to hold it out of place, or in place, out of the way. You can see I've cleaned up the threads here, and I did the same on the other side, just with some Scotch-Brite, and I cleaned off any residue that was on where those two valves were. Also, let me kind of pan over here. Here's the offending items. This is the store-bought valve that it's not bad at all. I mean, really was just a leak in this area, so I'm going to put it back together with some of this Permatex thread sealant because it worked good on the other side. It's made for high temperature, so I'm going to use that on that part, and I'll probably use some Loctite 542. I have some of that as well, and some acetone to clear up where this one connects at the bottom. So this is the one for the blower, and this one here is just essentially an on-off steam valve for the brake system, so it really doesn't get a lot of use. But I noticed a couple of interesting things. Number one, the union here was in bad shape, and there was a leak around there where on both sides where it was going in. So I'm going to replace that with this little nipple over here, threaded nipple that will go into the back of the valve. I also cleaned up the threads nicely on here, and I'll use some Loctite 542 on there. And I also noticed that the packing nut on the bonnet, it was kind of cockeyed and loose, and I don't know, there was air escaping out of there. So what I did was I looked it up, and it's a 3/16 inch 40 thread. So that's what I've got right here. I was using the 3/16 inch 40. I cleaned up the threads a little bit, so I'll be able to tighten down the packing nut a little bit better. And these are the parts. This is a PM research valve that I made myself, and I did a series of YouTube videos on. So, oh, and this part right here, this one, I've got this cleaned up here. I need to re-solder this joint here because I noticed that there was a leak where that was coming out. So this is the piping that goes to the ejector, the vacuum ejector for the brake. This one comes off, this connects off of that quick start valve that I showed a minute ago. All the rest of these parts are fine, and this is the nut that goes on it. So I'll just resolder that and put everything back together with some either the Permatex thread sealer or the 542 for the this is made for pipe thread applications. The 542 is for conventional. Okay folks, I think I'm ready to do the reassembly here. You can see that I've re-soldered this joint here, and it looks good. I just did the old blow test, and it looks like I've got it sealed good. And I cleaned the threads inside the nut there too. I used the wire wheel and the Dremel tool. So I think that's good to go. Cleaned up the threads on this, got the new union there, and I believe I'm ready to reassemble. I'm going to take my time this evening and put it back together. One thing I found, this is the stuff, the gray stuff. It was recommended. It's called Leak Lock. I think I read this on the Chasky group. As you can see, it's leaked out of the tube there. It was expensive. I had to order this from MSC or somebody. It was like $10 or $15 for that little tube, and it worked some, but there's some joints that just didn't seal. So that's what I'm going to give it a go with this Permatex thread sealant, and because I believe that'll help us. So I'll bring you back when it's done and we test it again. Okay, it's a little bit later here on Saturday night, and I've got everything put back together. You can see the white, this is basically like a liquid or putty type Teflon type stuff, and it goes on fairly soft, almost like silicone putty, like inside your house, and it sets up a little bit. This is some old stuff that I have over here, and it did solve that leak. That's why I'm wanting to try it again on these parts. So I put it in both in the 1/16 inch pipe thread that goes in here, and then the union that goes into the back of the valve. I've got that essentially liquid Teflon type stuff on there. So I'm going to let that set up overnight, and we'll try it. The reddish tint you see here, I'm get my finger over the right spot, that's the Loctite 542. And for these, most of these threads, it probably isn't really necessary I did use some of the Teflon in the part that goes into here because I had to remove that to in order to be able to spin this valve around and this one here and loosen it and tighten it. And I did repack this valve. I put some more Teflon tape stuff. I took a little piece, rolled it up, and then put it in there. I cleaned up the threads both on the outside and the inside here. So what I was going to say about the Loctite 542 is probably not necessary for all these unions, but I went ahead and used it anyway. And some of them, I got to thinking about it, might have actually been better to use something like a Never-Seez. Fred will probably comment on that. And here's the restored, re-soldered joint there for this. This is a quick start valve from Fred V's design. It's so totally cool. But this one is the one that supplies steam to the vacuum ejector, which will actuate the brakes on the tender. And the one over here is for the injector, for adding water into the boiler. So we'll let this set up overnight, and I'll do another leak test tomorrow and show you the results. Hopefully it'll all be satisfactory. Alright guys, you can probably tell by the quietness, I've got about 50 psi in there, and I am very happy now. Honestly, when I first put this back together, there were still a couple of leaks. I had to tighten up a few of these regular fittings here, but this stuff has, the thread sealant stuff has done a very nice job. It's holding pressure very nicely, and I'm really ecstatic because now I've got all this done and I can go ahead and put these tools away and start on my projects. My buddy Russ came by today and gave me some more stuff, so I'll be starting soon on the 12 by 36 Grizzly lathe projects. Looking forward to getting some cooler weather here. It's still in the 90s where we live along the central Gulf Coast of the US. So looking forward to getting some cool weather soon where I can run the locomotive. So let's see, I've got the Johnson bar in reverse, and let's go ahead and actuate the throttle a little bit. And that's not bad. A little stack torque. Put it in forward. Actuate the throttle. It even runs on like 10 psi, so real cool. Real excited about that. Go ahead and put it in neutral again. Hit the blowdown. Alright, I think we're good to go, folks. Put the tools away and start working on the lathe projects. Thanks everybody. Hope you have a great week.